Hi, Jami.
Hi, Tia.
Nice to see you again. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to see you.
So, before we hit record, you and I were having a great conversation about many different things. And I want to start off by asking you about how come presence and being present is really important to you.
Yeah, it's important to me personally and professionally. And something I've tried to do, or I try to do every single day, is replace the word busy with priority. I would never say I'm too busy. I don't really accept that answer as I'm too busy. I like to rephrase it with it's not a priority right now, or look at your priorities. But every day when I wake up, every week, every month, I know you're an organized person too, always prioritizing and reprioritizing. But the importance of being present is so important, especially right now with so many distractions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Everybody in the world has the same amount of time. And
Mm-hmm.
what separates a successful individual from others?
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of that is really blocking out your time or ensuring you're totally present. Um, Things happen from time to time. You might be sick, you might be off. I really feel it's important in those moments to step away.
Mm-hmm.
Don't push through. And I think you and I both know we come from a sales background, and we did. We pushed through, we rallied through. That was kind of the model that we were brought up in, and it doesn't really serve us well. I've noticed that you don't really get successful outcomes if you aren't really focused. But being present is so important as a manager, a leader of teams, but I
Mm-hmm.
think also for yourself.
Right, right. Whether it's presence internally, that quieting, or for your friend when you're with your friends, family members. So you mentioned time blocking, and of course, many productivity experts, happiness experts. There's a lot of different type of experts and researchers that have demonstrated that time blocking is really effective and can help you be present. For people listening who maybe this isn't a strength, this is something that they struggle with, how do you do it? What advice would you give for someone to, and this could be personal and professional life, about really being intentional about organizing your time? And then I think the harder part is actually staying accountable to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's one word: discipline.
Mm.
You have to be disciplined. Discipline isn't easy. I think I have a fitness background. I'm actually passionate about health, well-being, and fitness.
Yeah.
So I've run 3 marathons.
Oh
Is
my
it
gosh.
easy? And when you listen to like even a professional runner, I ran recreationally, but I did run Boston. So I think, I kind of earned my stripes there.
Yes.
Even when you talk to elite athletes, elite runners, they say the same thing. It hurts. It's not easy. Everybody faces the same challenges and obstacles, but I think the difference is it's discipline and consistency.
Mm-hmm.
And you really do have to put that into your life, into all aspects of your life. Things come up, there are emergencies where you're going to have to reprioritize,
Mm-hmm.
but your goals and your plans don't fall by the wayside. They get picked up again. You stay on course. Things happen on the way. You reprioritize as you go. But it really is discipline. It's not a secret. Anyone can do it, but it's not easy.
But it's not easy. Yeah. And there's, of course, a lot of messages out there about quick, easy strategies or tactics. And you just gave the honest answer. So can you share, before I move on to another topic, can you share some daily actions, daily rituals that you're disciplined with, that you're consistent with, that support you in being present? I also want to say, in being mindful.
Yeah. I think it started, I mean, I've always been a disciplined person,
Mm-hmm.
but becoming a morning person, establishing that ritual. You live in a big city. I live in a big city. If you wake up too late, the day has already started,
Yeah,
and
a lot is going on.
you
Yep.
there's no way to catch up, and you're kind of like just in a mess. But I think what works is having a ritual of going to bed early,
Mhm.
putting away your devices, ensuring you get the 8 hours of sleep, getting that sleep, coming into the morning in a more purposeful way where you have your quiet time in the morning. I know you have a family, you probably have a ritual where you have some time by yourself
Mhm.
before the rest of the
Yep,
family
I
gets.
meditate before my girls wake up.
Right, exactly. Getting fresh air, having a solid breakfast. But I have a powerful morning routine. It starts very early in the morning before everyone else. We're a global company. So after I have my morning rituals, then I maybe attack the rest of the world, some of those emails, that kind of thing,
Mhm.
a lot of activity later in the day, and then that quiet administrative, going into the evening.
Mhm.
But I think it's really having a solid sleep routine, paying attention to what you're hydrating, paying attention to what you're eating, paying attention to what you're consuming. And that's not just food, that's
Mhm.
conversations, that's what you read, that's the type of um, social situations you put yourself in. That's all consumption, including your social media. So
All, yes, all good. And it sounds like just um, this consistent rhythm. And many, oh gosh, the stat is so high in terms of the number of Americans that are sleep deprived and are not getting the 8 hours and work or social media or what else, spending time and not getting that sleep that is so vital for everything else. And then of course the food piece too. So it is wonderful that you have always been this consistent person and you've always prioritized health. And congrats on the 3 marathons. Um, when you think about the world of work and your not only your team, and I know you have extension and you also work with so many other teams in the company, in the global company, what do you think is really important for leaders to focus on when it comes to the well-being of the people that they're working with?
yeah, I think that's something that's always been important to me. It's one of our pillars here. So aligning with the pillars of the organization, innovation, climate, of course, is a pillar, and well-being. That's always been important to me. But I think as we look at future of work and some things that kind of changed coming out of the pandemic, um, it's an area that you really need to focus on even more. And you really need to be more astute. I think there might be signs that you might not be aware of coming out of total isolation and then kind of migrating into work. And I'll use this example, like you see people coming out of the pandemic at different stages,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some people tried to manage within the pandemic. I use myself as an example. I did all the things we were supposed to do, all of the protocols. But then when things started to open up and there was social distancing and limited capacity, I did do all of that. Like I kind of tried to transition with the rest of the world. Not
Mm-hmm.
everyone did that. Some people are still isolated. Some people haven't really caught up. So you're
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of different phases that were related to that particularly. But some tools you can give are, just like the one-on-one. So one-on-ones with your direct reports, meetings with the larger group, and they don't always have to have an agenda. Hear that at work, you need an agenda. Wait, where's the agenda? I don't see it. Well, I'm going to decline this meeting. You don't always need one. I think sometimes you need just a discussion before you have the agenda, especially now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Really a gauge with where are you spending your time? What is taking up a lot of your time? And the expression, Tia, there's no crying at work. Um, we're human.
Yeah.
So all feelings matter, and you have feelings wherever you are, and we're dealing with human beings. So I think it goes back to being present. It's really more important now than ever before to be engaged and present and look for signs. I mean, sometimes you've probably seen it with your own teams, because I know you've managed teams as well. There are
Mhm.
times when someone or someones will need more attention from you than others,
Yes.
right? And then your attention will go there. But you definitely cannot be a hands-off leader. I'm a serving leader. I think you know that.
Mhm.
Kind of direct your attention with whoever needs it at any given time, and that changes.
When you said there's so many great points in there, looking for signs, and this is a lot of nonverbal communication. It could be body language, could be how they're writing, could be many, many different things, right? Not everyone has the same skill set or experience of looking for signs that aren't obvious. So, what advice do you have for people that, maybe this isn't natural, maybe they didn't have leaders that did this well, right? Because, excuse me, the culture of leadership continues to change. Even with feelings and emotions at work, of course, I'm seeing so many more business books with the word love in the title, which, in the 80s and 90s, maybe not as much, right? So, what advice do you have for people that aren't sure if they are looking for the signs well, if they're really, I want to say in tuned, excuse me, and attuned to how people are really feeling?
Yeah, it's a tricky question because it does come down, and I see it too.
Mm,
There are people that are leaders, managers of people who take it very seriously, take all the leadership courses. I'm very interested in that. That's like my theme on LinkedIn, anything leadership related, coaching. And of course, that comes back from fitness too. So I know like negativity isn't really a motivator. Um, but you're not happy all the time either. But how do you
right.
coach someone? I think the question is more around, and this is maybe more organizational for organizations, and there are different sectors of business that some just promote based on maybe seniority. Are
Yeah.
you going to really get the right leader if that's what is valued?
Mm-hmm.
But I think looking at, like we said at the top, the future of work and maybe the future of leadership, maybe this is an area for organizations to really explore another dimension of maybe it would sit in human resources, but maybe there's a whole nother dimension around well-being where there are professionals. Because I always look to professionals. I know I'm not a professional in this area, but I look for professionals within the organization for those resources to help me to make sure I'm doing, the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think so. Yeah. There are some organizations that have like one, we both spoke at the World Happiness Summit. So she comes to mind, Jen Fisher, who's the chief wellbeing officer at Deloitte. And, she has a whole team. But there is a lot of training and education that needs to take place because not every single organization has this discipline, or maybe trying to focus on it, but do they, like you said, do they have, is it based on research, is it scientifically proven? And yeah, I'm very optimistic about the future of work in terms of the environment and culture for humans. I do think it's going to get better and better. I've had some people go, nope, it's going to go back to how it was. And I don't think so. I think it's been a pretty seismic shift for just how people work, and even, more flexibility, just as an example, that if people have a little more flexibility, a little more autonomy over their lives and over their work, they're happier and they'll do better work. So I think, yeah, I think
Well,
more good
you're
things are coming.
exactly right. I totally agree. I think one thing where you could really see where the rubber meets the road was when we were fully remote.
Mm.
So that was a time where, let's just say, like the showboaters could not showboat. You lost your audience, but you could really see who's productive. And I always say to my team, I see everything because everything is measurable, whether you're a remote worker, especially for our work, it's on projects, it's very easy to see. You can measure with teams. I mean, there's lots of ways to measure what people are doing. It's
Yeah.
not keeping track of them. It's really just measuring like we said at the beginning, where is your time being spent? And really doing those
Mhm.
check-ins on what are you spending time on? What do you want to do next? How do I give you the resources to do it? And I like the example you gave about Jen Fisher, the head of well-being at Deloitte. You really need a dedicated team that has the science and research behind it, because this isn't something that you can navigate on your own. You really need experts here because we're
Mhm.
managing in a different way, like you said. I don't know these people who say things will go back to 2019. I don't see anything like that. I haven't met, I mean, of course, I'm probably in a different circle, but there's so many things people don't want to go back to. And I think one of them is crowds and meaningless engagements. I can tell you just like, in my circle of travel
Right.
and people, there's so much more of a focus on family. People want to be with their families. People want to be
Mm.
with their loved ones and their friends. And if you're planning a business trip, it has to be a purposeful trip,
Mhm.
right? And it's
Mhm.
not leisure. Remember that word? People are like, oh, let's stay the weekend and it'll be bleisure. It's not bleisure. It might be like you work and then your family meets you and you have family time.
Right.
But it's not a blended thing.
Right.
It's a balanced thing.
It's a balance thing. Yes. Yes. So glad that you brought up the word balance. I actually just got off the phone with an executive in a global hotel company, and she said, which I hear all the time, is I need more work-life balance. I hear it at people always. There's like some questions that every audience, every time I speak, people ask, and one of them is about work-life balance. And there's a lot of different terms. Ariana Huffington has been talking about life work integration. I've heard of work life harmony, whatever, all the different ways you can call it. How do you maintain balance with you? I'm glad you talked about friendships. Oh my gosh, I love all the research on friendships from the blue zones or anyway, and family, like you talked about. So, and you also have talked about prioritizing your health, your physical health. So how do you maintain balance with everything that is in your life?
Yeah. I think you have to love what you do. I know
Good
it's such
point.
a
I say
simplistic.
that.
Yeah, when people say like, if you do what you love, the money will follow. It's a very simplistic, but it is true. If you do not love what you're doing, you won't be able to find that balance. You're never going to feel balanced. You have to really have a passion and love for what you're doing. And I think that's what I see too, is you can tell when there are individuals who aren't passionate. It's just a job. It's very tactical. When
Mm-hmm.
an individual takes it beyond the tactical, you're solving problems, you're sorting things out, you're moving into a more strategic position, you're part of the future, you're not part of the past. You're looking for innovation, you're looking for ways to solve bigger issues in your area of expertise. But I think that has a lot to do with it. If you're in, a situation or a job that is very tactical, that might work for you. But if it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't, you really have to find out what it is. And it takes some trial and error, trying things on to see how they fit. Um, I have a friend that recently lost her job. She's looking for a new career, and I am hoping and praying she pivots into another area
Mm.
because her brain will rewire. It'll rewire. She's going to think in a different way.
New
And
energy.
your
Yeah.
energy shifts, but if you're never exposed to anything, you really don't know how much better it can be. I've been lucky that, my career has kind of evolved in kind of an organic way, but a lot of that had to do with me. Like,
Mm.
hear a lot of things like, whether it's in your organization or in the world, that can't be done. No, no. Oh, that'll never work. I really don't accept those kinds of comments. They aren't helpful.
Right.
Uh, they also like I just don't get it. Like,
Yeah.
why don't you want to figure something out? Why don't you
Right.
want to prove an experience?
So let me just say, so also what you're saying, which is really powerful for everyone listening, is in addition to loving what you're doing and having passion for it, it's also about aligning with the culture of your organization.
Oh,
Like,
1,000%.
like this is like these align with my values, my beliefs about work,
Yes.
and that supports you feeling balanced
Yeah.
inside too.
1,000%. You can break it down to kind of a simple, like when I write goals, I look at the goals of the organization and then my departmental goals have aligned with them.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter where you are in the organization. Your goals ultimately roll up to the bigger strategy of your company.
Yeah.
And then culture, of course, that plays a big part. I think now more than ever, I get those questions when I'm interviewing. All the time. It's a question I would have never even known I could ask when I was interviewing
Yes.
20 years ago. But it is a consistent question I get is what is the culture of the organization? And people do want to align with companies that share their shared values for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
So how do you, oh my gosh, I want to use what you said before. Okay. So how do you consistently stay disciplined with making sure you get enough sleep, making sure that you move your body, that you eat right, and that you also have a life outside of work with friends or family members? Because many people in Western culture, work spills, takes over some sleep. Again, the person I was talking to right before, we were talking about this, not spending enough time exercising, maybe not meal planning, pushing off like, oh, I'll see my friends. Oh, I'll try, next week I got too much work. It is very common for people in Western culture to work sort of fills all the cracks. So what advice do you have for people that aren't prioritizing all the things that you are?
Um,
And I
well,
will say you probably could work 80 hour, 90, like I'm sure you could.
well, I do. I mean, I'm travel, so I'm always accessible. But I think like I'm building. You have to always put the people. We're in a people business, so
Yeah.
you want to build a program that provides a seamless, frictionless experience. Travel isn't fun, right? So like that's my ultimate goal is like I know what people deal with. I want to take that all away from you so you have a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
You meet all the needs internally, the legal and financial and all of that. But it is more work for sure. There's more work up front into how to you build this out. But I think, Tia, I'm just going to say this is a Jamiism. This is really important to me, and I tell it to everyone. You have it. It's building your brand and your reputation. Your character has nothing to do with where you work. Your character, your integrity, who you are, and going back to being consistent. That's what you're building. That goes with you wherever you go. And I think that's what people really have to think about when they're looking to balance. You can't, if you're everything to everyone, you're really no one. You can't be everything
Mhm.
to everyone. You do have to prioritize. If you're answering every single email, that's not that doesn't work either. So how do you like build out support? How do you balance your workload? You have to actually take some time to do that. And some people say like if you want it done right, you have to do it yourself. No, you don't. You have to you do need to delegate. And yes, we all make mistakes. You learn from them. But I think going back to like prioritizing and reprioritizing, I don't go to every single event I'm invited to. It's
So being
impossible.
able to say no and being okay with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have a work priority, you have a personal priority. And in fact, it doesn't matter what the priority is, but you really need to prioritize your life. Um,
Mhm.
life needs to be prioritized. And I'm just going back to like some personal situations in my own life. We all go through things like, death is unexpected. It's
Mhm.
convenient. But once you've experienced things like that or any kind of trauma in your life, I
Mhm.
think that also helps you prioritize. You shouldn't have to get to the point where like you have to go through a trauma to know what's important in your life, but you really have to plan your life accordingly to live the life that you want to live, um,
Mhm.
be proud of. But I think it's building your own character, integrity. If those are important to you, uh,
Mhm.
it does happen. It really comes down to the individual and your priorities. I mean, there really
Mhm.
is no one to blame.
No, there's not. And no one will do this for you. No one is going to, you
Yep.
know, I've never heard anyone in my 15 years in the hotel industry, and then I have had my own happiness company for 5 or 6 years. You're the first person that I've heard connect um, prioritizing yourself, which could be your relationships, your health, your emotional well-being, your spiritual well-being, right? In addition to your career. But I've never heard anyone connect that with your character and your integrity. And you also talked about your personal brand, where do you want to be known as the person that says yes to every single thing, works 85 hours a week, doesn't take care of themselves, is sleep deprived, is running on 700 coffees a day? Is that who you want to be? And so I always am talking about it from a happiness angle, but I love that you talked about it from character, integrity, and your personal career brand also.
Yeah. I mean, Tia, it's always like if I know you as Tia, and I know you as Tia, I don't attach you to any organization. I think that is the true test of someone's character.
Mhm.
And there are some people who you'd say like their name plus where they work.
Yeah.
That is like my gauge of like how well do I know you. But yeah, I feel like you really need to stay true to yourself and build a brand that is consistent. It's your brand. It's not uh where you work. I mean, all of those benefits and things are attached to your organization. But when
Mhm.
you you really have to look at who am I?
Yeah.
Who am I? But being consistent especially in this world where we're um navigating personal and work obligations, I think it's more important than ever. I
Yes.
also feel like you really can't hide. I've heard people say like, oh well, they're different outside of work. No, they're not different. That is exactly who they are.
Mhm.
Who you are is what you are
Mhm.
always, and there is no hiding. I think you see it too with emails. I get emails and then you meet someone, you're like, oh, they're nice, but how did that happen? Like there's a disconnect here.
Right. Right.
This doesn't make sense to me.
Right. Right. Yeah. The alignment. No, I agree that if you, and I will say though, at the very beginning of my career, because of I became a leader really young at 26 years old. And so it definitely wasn't comfortable. And I don't know if copying is not the right word, but because I wasn't sure of like, what's my leadership style? I definitely, and I would say a lot of it was unintentional, acted like, because I had a female general manager. And she was successful. I was like, okay, like this is kind of how. And then after a while, I was like, whoa, that's not my style, and to be authentic.
Yeah, but
But
you actually did it the right way. I saw that in your book too. You're 26, but copying and mimicking, you do create your own style by
yes,
doing that. Because someone said to me once, when I was teaching the cycling classes, hey, another instructor stole all your words. And I said, I don't care because they're not, when they come out of her mouth, they're going to sound completely different.
yes. And it's a
Nobody can,
compliment, actually. She obviously thought you were fantastic.
yeah, but nobody can steal anything from you.
Right.
You are you. But I think
You.
it is okay to, if you see somebody and admire somebody, to kind of if they're doing something right and you want to be like that, I think that's one of the steps, is to kind of copy it, mimic it. But it will become your own.
It'll
It will
become your own. Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Oh, Jami, we could probably talk for another hour or so, but it's the end of this episode. Thank you so much for coming on the Arrive at Happy show. And I hope to see you on the East Coast or West Coast sometime in the near future.
Same. My pleasure.